Hello everyone, welcome back to the third episode of my C beginner course. In this episode, we're going to learn about data types in C, and this is so far the most well and lovely episode ever you can imagine, because here we're going to talk about all the confusions that you have from day one up to now. In C, we have two types of data categorized in two aspects, which is fundamental data types and derived data types. C is not exception of any other programming language. In fact, most of the programming languages emerging today, they are using concepts and ideas which are invented by C since the day C was invented. C is a language which is close and really near to the machine's understanding. It is fast, it is easy, and it is in aspect of foundational learning of a programming language. This is how C is. So back to our topic, fundamental data types. Here actually we mean the basic data types of C. In C, we have integers, floats, doubles, and we have characters. And those are all under fundamental data types of C. The first three, which is integers, float, and doubles, are numeric data types. What I mean by that is they are all emphasizing on numbers. Those data types, the difference between them though is that integer is only taking whole numbers. In other aspect, it's taking numbers which has no decimal places. While float and double, they are data types which are taking numbers which has decimal places. The difference between two of them, which is float and double, is that double is extension of float. It is just increment in the byte or in range of how each data type can hold a specified amount of number or have a specified size of memory. And that is what the difference between these two data types comes in. So without further ado, let's jump right into our code blocks. Here we are using int keyword when we define a variable which is of type integer. If we want to define a data type which takes in a whole number without decimal places, we are using int, like a specific, maybe if you have amount of money, or maybe if you have something that you need to calculate mathematically, but that thing has nothing to do with decimal places, then int is your best friend. If you say int, then num for number, give a value to that number. You can define it and declare it in another place. It has no problem. You can declare it, define it, it has no problem. What I mean by this, if you say int num, like you just terminate it with semicolon, then you come down and say num is equal to half, something of that kind, it has no problem. The code won't yell at you or anything. It works fine. Then here we're going to just use it one way. We are saying int num, then we will say equal to whatever kind of number we need to equate it to, which means we are defining our variable and initializing, and this variable is of type int. So going down, we will have things like float, then let's give a value to our float. We say degree, that degree is going to be like 3.45 degree. And if we have to go to double, just say score, something like that. So those are the aspect of all this. So to know really the difference and how those things are like fundamentally uncomparable to one another, let's first go and try to print it out and see what will be out of it. So like that, let's run our program and see what the compiler tells us. Okay, running integer, float, double, and if you can notice one thing, here we gave only 45 and it is giving us extra zeros here. Here also we gave only 3.77, but it's giving us extra zeros here. That is basically how it works. Even if we gave it only 3, it is going to find that decimal place and give us that bunch of zeros in the other side. So without wasting time, let's add in char, which is for character. Then let us say our character is x, we give it a value of a, like that, terminated with semicolon. Then instead of stopping here, let's go further and say character. Okay, %c is for character as usual. Our new line is getting a little bit longer. Okay, so the name we gave for that character is, what's the name for the character? X. Okay, let's just say X there, then everything will just work exactly as expected. So let's run the program once again and see. It's giving us what? H. Okay, we gave our program we gave the character to be a, but it's giving us H. Where exactly is the problem? Oh, yeah, my fault. We are supposed to put a single quotation mark here. Yep, that is exactly what the problem is. We are supposed to use a single quotation mark. Okay. Now I got this. So this is actually how a basic fundamental data types are in C. You can use them dynamically in the aspect of what you really want to use them for. And it is really lovely, like if you get used to it and if you play around with it in many ways or try to do some mathematical expression. It is just like in the previous video we have did a lot of things concerning variables, constants, and things like this. Just the same way, there's no difference. But this video is just to enlighten you, to make sure that you understand. If you say int num, what do you really mean? You mean you are defining a variable or an address which is going to point to a whole number which doesn't have anything like decimal places in between it. And if you say float degree or float whatever kind of variable name you're going to give to, you need in numbers which are not whole numbers but has a decimal places in between them. That is exactly the number that you need. And if you say double, it's just quite like the same thing you meant with the float up there, but you need a number which has a decimal places and at the same time is well extended to take enough ranges of numbers. And that is how you can deal with these three numeric data types in C. Coming to char, okay, here, because we can see here in char, we are only taking A. Then what if you need to write your name? Is where the derived data types comes to assist. Okay, there you are going to use the square bracket, and that square bracket you can give it a specified number or indexes that you need the sequence of that character to be. If maybe your name 10 characters long and you just need only that piece of memory to store that characters, then you'll just say 10. That is all. Then whatever kind of character you're going to write here, it can't exceed 10. If it exceeds 10, then the program will not execute the way you need. It will have some bugs and things like this. But the better practice is for you just to leave it empty like this, so that whatever kind of character you need to write the other side, it doesn't matter. This in C we are calling it a string or an array. The variable or address which takes in a sequence of characters is called array or is string in other aspect. Let's say John here. Then one piece of changes that you're going to notice is if we come here, instead of putting %C, this %C is only for a single character. So as we have now transformed our program to print out not only a single character but a sequence of characters, we are going to use %S, and this stands for strings, combination of many characters together or a sequence of many characters which form a specified name or a specified thing out of those combinations. So let's run the program and see how name John is going to be printed there. Here, have you seen here coming down to character here, the name John is printed, and this is because we have now allowed our program to take in a sequence of characters. With this, I'm quite sure that you have understand how the basics of data type works in C. This has brought us to the end of this episode. See you in the next episode, and thanks for watching. Peace.